I often comment on this channel that the studios just do not release the big R-rated comedies anymore that were littered throughout the 2010s into theaters. This one features one of the biggest names in the world, Jennifer Lawrence, in No Hard Feelings. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the new film No Hard Feelings. This is available in theaters right now, and see it with, a group. That's usually how movies like this are meant to be seen, not on your little Netflix TV or on your phone or whatever. They are meant to be seen with a group of people, and this one is no exception. A lot to unpack here, so before we get into it, let me first welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. I put a ton of great movie and TV reviews up for you to check out. Try to put something new just about every day for you, so please consider subscribing down below. Click that notification bell so you get all the alerts for when I do drop new videos, or just like this video, comment down below. All that stuff does help the channel out. All right, I am a huge Jennifer Lawrence fan, so we can start there. I think her comedy chops have not really been tested yet before this movie. So perhaps I went into this with, some higher expectations. However, a little bit reserved because we don't get a lot of these R-rated comedies anymore. And when we do, and look, I understand why maybe they sort of phase them out a bit after the craze of the 2010s, because they just, kind of started being, kind of similar and not as funny. And a lot of them, I would give pretty middling grades to. Even a pretty decent comedy like the Neighbors series had, a couple of good laughs in each one, and I enjoyed them. But still, are they, really doing anything that different? No, and I always say, okay, the last, great theatrical comedy, on a big scale was Game Night. I say that all the time. But, there are a couple that I neglect to mention. One of them actually didn't go to theaters. It was supposed to, but then COVID, so Netflix bought it. And that's The Lovebirds. That's a really good movie with Issa Rae and Kumail Nanjiani. But Good Boys is another really, really great example. And the director of Good Boys directs this movie here. His name, I was unfamiliar with his name, Gene Stupnitsky. But he also wrote Bad Teacher, which I love. That is, from early in the 2010s, right when sort of that R-rated craze. It was like right after The Hangover and Bridesmaids. All the studios were like scrambling to do R-rated comedies. And that was one of probably the first ones out after that craze had kind of hit. That and Horrible Bosses, both really good movies. But so this dude wrote Bad Teacher, which I love. So, okay, I'm expecting maybe some good things from this. Basically, the plot here is Jennifer Lawrence plays this 32-year-old woman named Maddie. Down on her luck, she's about to lose the house that she's lived in since her childhood. Her mother has passed, so it's her mom's house that she was given basically in her death. And she's been living in Montauk, New York, her whole life. She bartends, she Ubers, but in the beginning of the movie, her car gets towed. So now she's like, well, shoot, here we go. It's the beginning of the summer. I make most of my money for the whole year doing Ubering for the summer with all the rich guests that come to Montauk. So her friend, played by Natalie Morales, sees an ad on Craigslist saying, hey, date our 19-year-old son for the summer and get a new Buick. Well, not a new Buick. I think they say it has 40,000 miles on it or whatever. But basically, we'll give you wheels if you date, get to know, have sex with our 19-year-old son before he goes off to college and gets eaten alive. He's a nice kid, but he's very, very shy, very introverted, and what have you. And so that kid is played by Andrew Barth Feldman, who I was unfamiliar with, but he played Dear Evan Hansen a couple of years. He played Evan Hansen, the title character, for a couple of years on Broadway, and they actually use his musical background here in the movie. He does play piano at one point, and the camera, shows him actually physically doing the piano. So, a lot of times there's like little tricks they can use to make it seem like they're playing. But no, he was definitely playing. So, I was impressed with that. I was like, okay. I thought maybe from that this dude must be Broadway kid or something. Turns out, yes, indeed, he has some other credits too, but I was not familiar with him. But so anyway, they hire her, and there we go. And this is, for all intents and purposes, I would say this is a romantic comedy. It's certainly an R-rated, sex comedy, raunch comedy, whatever you'd want to say. But, at its heart, like a lot of these R-rated comedies, actually, is a bit of a rom-com as well. So let me get back to Jennifer Lawrence for a second. So I do not feel that she has fully reached her potential as a comedic actress. We've seen her do some funny bits. I think in Silver Linings Playbook, she certainly had a few, jokes or whatever. The movie Don't Look Up, which I did not particularly care for, but I thought she was a bit of a standout in there because they actually let her be funny and kind of like in a silly, more slapstick type way. Like she wasn't just reading off lines; she was doing physical comedy. And here they really let her go loose on that. In fact, there's one scene on the beach is one of the funniest scenes I've seen in a movie in a long time. I was laughing so hard. And I did see this in a theater with, I wouldn't say it was a sizable group of people because it was like a morning show, but there were probably maybe, 12 or 14 of us in the theater. I think I was probably laughing the hardest, to be honest, but people were, laughing. But that one scene, I was sold on this. And it comes maybe, 45 minutes in. It's not, at the very beginning of the movie. We have to build, some things first, but, there's maybe a couple of questionable things in this movie. She comes off a little bit as a bully, in parts of this movie because this kid is very introverted, and there is, I think, a suspension of disbelief here too, where he does end up sort of going along with things that I don't think a person that has like zero experience with anything and doesn't really have any friends and all of that would kind of go along with. But, look, maybe because she is very beautiful, maybe there is some kind of intrigue there on his part. I don't know. I thought it was a little less suspend disbelief, but look, it's an R-rated comedy. I think that comes with the territory. But speaking of the R-rated nature of this, I actually think it could have used a couple more scenes like the one on the beach. And I'm not even going to go into what happens because it's a little spoilery, but it was a go for broke scene. I don't think it was trying too hard. There's a couple scenes in this movie where I think maybe, okay, they were trying to kind of up the raunch factor a little bit. It never does that too much, though. There were a lot of movies in that era I was talking about, like Sex Tape, for example, with Jason Segel and was that Cameron Diaz, right? Where it was like they really were trying to push way too hard for some of the raunchy stuff. This doesn't necessarily do that. In fact, I think in some aspects it plays it a little safe, maybe. But I think that makes it better for the adult viewer, probably not as much for like the 14-year-old that's going to sneak into it with his buddies. But I think it's going to work pretty well because of kind of the romantic factor. I think it's going to work actually pretty well for adults. I'm 45, and I've been through all of the phases. In the early 80s, you had kind of the college comedies, and then that kind of got revived with American Pie in the late 90s, and then of course the latest. So I've been through several stages of kind of the R-rated raunch comedy, sex comedy. This one actually has a pretty good heart to it. It's definitely got some sweet, tender moments. There's some background stuff with the Maddie character and her estranged father, and we find out a little more too about what's the guy's name? I don't think I even said it. Percy, yeah. We get a little bit about his background too. His parents, by the way, played by Laura Berlanti, Laura Benanti, and Matthew Broderick. Haven't seen him in a few years, so it was good to see him. But overall, look, I think this is going to be a good time at the movies. Hopefully, it does well enough that the studios sort of think it again and like, oh, maybe these do work. Because they're pretty cheap to make, I feel like, other than kind of the talent, to pay Jennifer Lawrence and stuff. So I leave no hard feelings with a B+. Pretty good time at the movies. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It.